Radio.
6 Music. You are now entering parallel universe.
And wipe your feet on the way in.
Marc Riley, BBC 6 Music.
Loads and reward, and my reward for the evening is to be sat in the same room as the one, the only Mr. Bobbykins Hughes.
Stop that right there.
Beverly Bob, as he is now known.
No longer Timperley Bob, absolutely. Tell you what, that's a way to finish a tune, isn't it?
Wow.
Huge big brass fanfare.
Proper.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're looking at The Enemy here, 4th of July, 1981. In the news, Ian Dury and Elvis Costello will co-headline the opening day of the first Rock on the Tyne festival. This is a new one on me.
So is that like Rock on the Tyne is all mine, all mine? Is it play on words?
Yeah, I think that's where it comes from.
Right.
An ambitious 2-day event to be staged at the Gateshead International Stadium on August Bank Holiday. It's a northern rival to the traditional Reading Festival. It'll be the first time that Dury and Costello have been on the same bill with their own bands, Blockheads and the Attractions, respectively, since the very first Stiff package tour, of course.
Well, that would be the case because they both took off afterwards, didn't they?
Yeah. Also appearing on the Saturday, U2, Pauline Murray and the Invisible Girls, Doll by Doll, and Polecats. Sunday bill ranges from heavy metal to folk rock and is headed by Rory Gallagher. Says the festival is the biggest ever staged in the Northeast, and the promoters intend to make it a regular annual event. Sadly, this didn't happen. So they only attracted, from what I can gather, between 10 and 15,000 punters to this, which is a surprise given the bill.
So, sorry, let me get this straight. So this actual event did happen, but it didn't in the ensuing years?
This happened, okay, so
right.
Between 10 and 15,000 turned up. They were hoping for like between 40 and 50. It didn't really happen.
Right.
They ran it for the year after in 1982 and then sacked the whole thing because it just wasn't working for whatever reason.
Well, it's a lot of people in it for. I mean, if you look at it, ironically, I mean, at some point in time, not there far after, you too would get 35, 40,000 people in Ellen Road or whatever, wouldn't
of course,
so,
yeah. Maybe it's just a timing thing. Also in the news, the Professionals, alias Paul Cook and Steve Jones, plus guitarist Ray McVeigh and bassist Paul Myers, have cancelled their debut tour, scheduled to begin this week. Virgin Records released the band's date sheet last week, only to follow it up on Monday with the news that the whole thing was off. I don't know why it's been scrapped, said a spokesman. Their management haven't offered any explanation. I think they were struggling to find a producer, weren't they, from what I believe. I think they were just looking for the right time, and they didn't want to go out there on the road without any sort of new material.
Right, okay.
But I always thought the Professionals never really got off the ground, did they? They were just sort of bad timing, bad luck.
Well, I don't know too much about them, but I mean, if you look at like Steve Jones, he had the Greedy Bastards, didn't he?
Yeah,
there were all these different kind of different permutations of him and quite often Paul Cook, and it was just like kind of floundering a little bit, wasn't it? It seemed.
Yeah, never really had legs, did it? The Ramones have their 7th album issued at the end of July called Pleasant Dreams. Their previous set was produced by Phil Spector. This time, Graham Gouldman of 10cc was in charge of production. Joey Ramone completed the vocal tracks at Gouldman's Strawberry Studios earlier this year in Stockport.
I never knew that.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I thought it was just common knowledge. And I was ignorant. Currently on the road in the States, the band are likely to tour Britain again in the autumn. So I didn't know Joey Ramone came to Stockport to record his vocals for that record.
I didn't know Graham Gouldman had done it either.
No,
that's really strange.
But what I do know about that record is, having watched the heartbreaking documentary about the Ramones, that is the point where all that tension between Joey and Johnny was really simmering. And there was a bit where Johnny went off with Joey's girlfriend, and it never really got repaired, that relationship, did it? And that's where it really all starts happening.
End of the Century, it's called,
that's
isn't it?
right,
the
End of the
documentary.
Century,
I mean, I was in Stockport just today, and there is no Blue Heritage plaque for Joey Ramone.
Marc. Bruce Springsteen, interviewed by Nick Kent. Obviously, there's pages and pages of this, but I'm just going to... He's back playing gigs over here in the UK, which brings back memories of the time he first came to London on a wave of ridiculous hype from CBS in 1975. So we've done this, haven't we, before, where he was Lord... I mean, it's the record company's fault, because they basically described Springsteen as not just the next big thing, but the future of rock and roll.
It's one of those things a little bit like when, I think it was The Enemy, actually, described Nine Black Alps, ISAM, as the next Nirvana. And they weren't the next Nirvana. They were a great band. They had some great tunes and they could really play. But when you've got that kind of baggage, then you're going to struggle. It didn't do Springsteen any harm, though.
Well, it did for a while, because he's quite confessional here.
Right.
He says, I've always been haunted by the 2 gigs we played here back in 75. I've got total recall of those shows because the first one was so bad. The negative aspect of that London trip came to exemplify this psychic weight on my head. It stood out as the breaking point and the turning point. So he's sort of making out here, this really was the making of him in a probably probably in a way that you hadn't really foreseen or wanted.
Right.
All the record company nonsense, the pressures, the great expectations, everything became magnified, and my viewpoint was just trashed. I felt I just wanted to drop the whole thing, my career as a musician, because my self-confidence was shot. It's hard to believe because, well, just seemed such a cocksure character.
Yeah, he was I have seen the future of rock and roll.
Yeah,
that was
that's
the
what
kind
it
of
was,
phrase, wasn't it?
Yeah. Adrian Thrills has a look at the singles. 2 singles of the week. Got Chant No. 1 by Spandau Ballet, I suppose it's quite edgy for NME.
Right.
And the other one, Show Me by Dexys, which produced by Tony Visconti, that, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So
Absolutely.
it would make sense to go there, but we're not going there.
We don't do that kind of thing on this programme, do we, Bob? So we're going to go to the Tom Tom Club instead?
They're in the charts.
Okie dokie. Tom Tom Club with Wordy Rapping Hood, Marc Riley and Bob Hughes and the Parallel Universe.
Yeah, look at the NME, 4th of July 1981. Just Tom Tom Club is quite interesting. Have you read Chris Francis' book?
I haven't.
Very entertaining, actually. But it's ironic, isn't it? The record company wanted David Byrne to be, the star, have a solo career and everything, and just ignored Tina and Chris. And they went off and formed Tom Tom Club. Had 2 really big hits and sold more records than Talking Heads.
Did they end up outselling Talking Heads? That's incredible.
Absolutely. So, stories here. Angie Bowie. So she just published her Backstage Passes, I know, like you.
Yeah.
Free Spirit is this one, which I'm not familiar with.
No, don't know that at all. I mean, there was a gagging order, wasn't there, on Angie Bowie for a certain amount of years after a divorce with Bowie.
Yeah, that's right.
And then when you can imagine, midnight comes, the end of the gagging order, and boom!
I wonder if it was in place at the... Oh, this is interesting. So this is reviewed by Cynthia Rose. She says, it's weird that the 176 pages of this is pompous, self-obsessed bilge, so obviously riddled with suspicion, not to mention jealousy, envy, competitiveness, and eventually sheer ennui. This is achieved at the expense of a few other things like candour, chronology and accuracy. Bowie Files was search in vain for their money's worth of info about the man, particularly in those vital moments one would assume the former Mrs. B is equipped and seemingly ready to tell all about. So maybe there was some kind of legal thing going on, which is a strange time to launch a book, though, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who knows anything about Bowie recognises the fact. And people like Woody Woodmansey and John Cambridge, these guys will all testify to the fact that Angie Bowie was hugely responsible for Bowie and the way that he came through, and Ziggy Stardust and the theatrics.
Yeah.
Everybody involved with Bowie does recognise that fact, but I don't know that Bowie recognised it outwardly very much.
Yeah, sure. Well, this is the interesting thing here, because it goes on to mention how they met. They met at a King Crimson gig, didn't they, at Speakeasy?
Yeah.
David went over and said, do you jive? Etc., etc. So loads of stuff about that. Cynthia Rose concludes by saying, obviously, so the antithesis, I suppose, of what you've just said. It's hardly necessary to mention that Angie did absolutely nothing else except be Mrs. Bowie. The book's illustrations feature shot after shot of her in elaborate get-ups for plays, events and TV shows, which never happened. So this is the lie that was sort of, mistruth that was perpetuated for so long, wasn't it?
Well, that couldn't be further from the truth.
Exactly.
I mean, she was absolutely instrumental in Ziggy Stardust.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Glastonbury 81. So we did a Glastonbury piece a few weeks ago. I think it was it Roy Wilkinson going to an early 90s one, maybe, or late 80s?
That's right.
And it was a very sort of small, micro-ish festival. Gavin Martin goes to Glastonbury 81. It's even smaller. Concludes about 18,000 people there, he says. Everything's, the main stage is within the big silver pyramid. That's where it was at the time. He says, not surprisingly, a lot of the people here are not regular concert goers. Many young couples see it as an opportunity to take the kids for a holiday in the country, which is all well and good, though I prefer something more private than what resembles a Butlins for the brown rice set. How things have changed!
Ouch! Good Lord!
He does say he enjoyed it, though. He said all around us campfires are in full blaze, the smell of burning wood hanging over the tent, stretched over the sleeping field as far as the eye could see. We descend the hill along with an influx of struggling campers and head towards a stage which is housed in a massive silver pyramid. Friday night was like being plunged into a magical and illicit otherworld. Sounds pretty good.
Great writer, Gavin,
he is,
bless him.
Yeah, much missed. Lots of new albums. Duran Duran's debut, reviewed by Chris Bond. No surprise he didn't like it. He does compare them to a young Barclay James Harvest, which I'm sure they didn't see coming.
Okay.
Paul Dunoyer reviews Napu, The Art of Bluff by Wah. They've dropped the heat, said it's wonderful. And Nico's Drama of Exile, which is interesting because it's the first one that she started using like a sort of rock setting, wasn't it? everything's quite loud.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Nico playing when she was living, she had her tenure in Manchester, and we had Blue Orchids in session just last week.
Yeah.
And Blue Orchids were her backing band at one point in time, which did obviously have that kind of rocky backbone to it.
Yeah. It says here, first album in 7 years, probably the most successful of her romantic tales of gloom. Here she sings with greater force and rhythmic sense than before, and expresses a survivor's courage in replacing her customary quaint accompaniment with the more lively pace of a punchy rock band. Various covers, including I'm Waiting for the Man, says not only reveals an insider's understanding of the Velvet Underground, but shows Nico disappearing into the song's stronger atmosphere. And in Bowie's Heroes, I forgot she covered that, she finds a perfect medium for this individualism. She had said it all got really boring, all those sort of quiet albums, and because she'd been in VU, she felt compelled to do some kind of rock album at some point. So
I think when she landed in Manchester, like I say, she didn't intend to stay.
No.
But she was just very transient. She just didn't feel like she had any roots, and she didn't have a band or anything. So, because they did the Bataclan, didn't they?
They did, yes, that's right. 72, was it?
72, yeah, which was, so it was Reed and Cale and Nico, wasn't it? But she'd not really had a kind of a working band with her. So
really.
it must have been a new lease of life for her, getting Blue Orchids and these people.
Yeah, imagine, yeah. Of course, she was based in Wally Range, I think, wasn't she?
Yeah.
So, anyway, not going there. Excuse me, going back to the charts.
Okay, the Specials in Ghost Town.
Yeah.
The Specials and Ghost Town, Mark Riley, Bob Hughes, Parallel Universe, but where are we, Bob?
Well, we're in The Enemy, 4th of July 1981. Just one album I did want to mention here. Sparks' Womp That Sucker, reviewed by Lynn Hanna, says fizzy pop gone flat for the once witty Mail Brothers. Not even Russell's babyface or Ron's baleful glare can disguise the fact that their fluffy confections have dissolved into sweet nothings, distinctly unsparkling, in fact. I mean, say what you will about it. They've done 2 albums, haven't they, with Giorgio Moroder? And the story I read was that they wanted to go and tour, those albums, but they found all the synthesizers and all the electronic stuff too cumbersome to go out on tour with, so they went back to a sort of rock band format.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I believe so. Just a reminder as well, if people haven't seen that Sparks documentary, couldn't recommend it highly enough.
Yeah, the Mail Brothers, isn't it?
Yeah, it's brilliant. Gigs of the week this week, July 81, you've got Spirit playing Old Aylesbury Friars, supported by Marillion, Strange Bill.
Right.
Hawkwind at Manchester Apollo, the Enid at the Marquee in London, which is apparently Robert Godfrey's birthday party, the Staple Singers at the Venue in London, Iggy Pop, Nottingham Rock City. Did you see that tour? Would it be the Soldier Tour or the one Party, would it?
Well, yeah, so I did see it. Yeah. What year are we on?
81.
Yeah, I think that was when I saw him at the that'd been the Russell Club, maybe.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, I did see him anyway.
Wow, wonderful. The Damned and Ruts DC at the Lyceum in London, Blue Orchids, last week's session guests at the Moonlight Club in West Hampstead, the Scars at the Porterhouse in Retford, the Reckless Eric Band at the Hope and Anchor in Islington, Black Sabbath and Motorhead headline a big heavy metal all day at Port Vale FC, Doll by Doll at Wolverhampton Lafayette, the Jam at Bridlington Spa Royal Hall, Iggy Pop at Manchester Apollo. Maybe you saw him there.
Yeah, that would be it. I tell you, just going back to the Wolverhampton Lafayette.
Yes.
We played there with The Fall, and we went and did the sound check, and then went out to the pub, as is usually the case. And then we came back in about half an hour before we were going on, and everybody, pretty much, in the club was lying on the back on the floor doing the dying fly.
Oh, that.
Yeah, and we'd never seen it before, never heard of it, and it's just like everybody's on the deck, like with their arms and legs going like...
Yeah.
And we're like, what the hell's what fresh hell is this? And so it's a dying fly. Do you not know?
Oh, what a way to be introduced.
It was great.
Oh, fantastic. Soft Cell play Kirk Levington Country Club, Bob Dylan at Birmingham's NEC, and Crass at Dundee Wishart Centre. Gig of the week, though, by a mile, has to be Blue Orchids, the birthday party, and the Nightingales at the Venue in London.
Oh, yeah. Excellent.
Just wonderful. Have we got time for a live review? Probably not.
Quickly, yeah.
Just Soft Cell at No Nukes Benefit in Nottingham by Lynn Hanna. She says they're a shambles, going nowhere. This is about 2 weeks before the release of Tainted Love. So easy to say in hindsight, but moments in time.
Right, okay. Well, we always say about that, like, amnesty, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We do. But we're not doing Soft Cell, are we?
No, we're going to go to Wire and Our Swimmer, and we'll play this for Colin Newman and Malka, and also say thanks to everybody for listening, and we'll see you when we see you. Bye-bye.
Prepare to exit the parallel universe. Riley, BBC Six Music.
And shut the door on your way out.